It's being recorded. Hi, everyone, people that are online and people that are watching this live right now. Welcome to our lecture 5. I think it's lecture 6, but it's module lecture. Actually, it's lecture 5 and it's module 4. So welcome to this class, and we're gonna cover some. So there's 3 things we're gonna cover today. We're gonna cover the module 4 lectures, the theory material, and then we're gonna finish project 1B, and then we'll also give you guys some hints for project 1C. So let's get started. Um, let me get started with this immediately. Let me turn off my screen. Do anyone has any questions regarding the class or the project, like a quick question that might be beneficial to all the other students? Um, then feel free to ask the question. Otherwise, we'll jump right in.
Quick question. When
Yes.
do we think that the grades for the previous two projects will be out?
So the grade for project 1A will be out by before this Thursday. And the grades for project, so usually it's 1 week after the deadline. So the deadline is, uh, even though it says the deadline is on Monday, technically it's on Wednesday because you do have the 48 hours. So it's expect 1 week after the deadline for the grades to be released. Good question. Any other questions? All right, so let's move on then. Let me turn off my camera. And then let me share my screen. Let me know, give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, I see a thumbs up from Demiana, and I see someone in the chat saying something. I say, yeah. Okay, so you guys can see the screen. Great. How do I remove this? Okay, so let's start with, so just a couple of quick notes. I'm going to show you what the format of the question is supposed to be. The format of the question is supposed to be for project 1C. I'm getting a lot of questions. How are the questions supposed to be structured? Actually, I'm going to show you in the beginning of the live coding part. And also another thing I want to make a note of is please watch the lectures. I've been getting emails and questions that have already been covered in the lectures. And not that I want to discourage students asking questions. Even after watching the lectures, they might have the issues, which is okay. But I would prefer that the student would watch the video first. And and this is how this class is going to go. I want everybody to pass this class. Obviously, everybody is not going to have the best grades. It depends on how much effort you put into this class. But the first project 1, I'm going to do basically everything. Of course, on Tuesday after the deadline, that's on Monday. So I'll be doing project 1C next week, and project 1B will be finishing today. And then that's going to decrease, right? For project 2, maybe I'll do 70%. I'm going to show you some different things and the best practices and how to do project 2, project 2, A, B, and C. And then you do need to continue reading the book, because in project 3, I'm going to be pretty much hands off. I'll just show you some new techniques, and I'll just ask you guys, say, hey, I've already showed you guys how to do this, and you need to know how to, you know, how to work this technique on your own in project 3. And say, for example, I would have taught you by project 2 to how to fetch things from the database. Instead of database, you'll be fetching things from the API in project 3, and I'll just say, you have done it from database. You just need to look at the book and do some few changes, but it's going to be similar, right? So I intend everybody to pass this class because I will be helping you guys a lot, but obviously it depends on how much time you spend reading the book and solving the problem yourself, and how much you understand from these lectures and reading the books, because ultimately in project 2 and 3 there is going to be some portion that you'll be solving yourself, right? So that's that's what this class is designed to do. Is I'm not designing this class to fail anyone, but also at the same time, people that do put more effort, people that have more programming experience, they might find it easier than other people. And not to compare anyone, obviously people with more experience are going to succeed, and that's for them a success might be like a A plus. But people that are just learning programming, just barely getting an A or B, even that might be a success. Like, oh wow, I've successfully made some Android application. So there's different level of success for different people. But this class is designed for everybody to succeed from where they are. So let me just start with this a little bit of a speech on the side. So let's just start the class. It's Android um, mobile development. That's the name of the class. And then we have, hold on, where's my mouse? Okay. And the module we're going to cover is testing and intents. I'm not going to go too much into testings. I will let you guys look at the test cases. I'm actually going to show you a couple of test cases. Maybe next week I'll show you guys how it's written and some how it's done, right? But I will cover mostly intents in this class. I'll briefly show you what we'll be doing in this class. Actually, you will be using the scripts to test project 1C, right? So you'll be using some testing scripts, and you will see how those are written, right? And I think those testing scripts are pretty understandable and well written, right? And I think you'll benefit just looking at those test scripts and learning how to write your code from the mistakes. If you made some mistakes after you found the test, after you ran the test scripts, right? So let's move on to the next slide. So this is the JVM test. So if you have done 2114, if you have done 3114, if you've done anything about unit testing, this is basically unit testing, right? There are two kinds of testing. JVM testing that basically tests against the variables and the functionalities inside the code, right? So this is going to be something like, say here, the current question text, right? So this quiz view model should give you the current question text, right? And this should be equal to Canberra is the capital of Australia, if that's your first question. Obviously, not everybody has named that as their first question, but that should be that, right? In the second one, you say wraps around question bank, right? So say like you have, you basically what you do in this second one is basically you go to the last index, you set current index to 5, which is the last question, and then you move to the next question. So it should go back to the first question, right? So that's wrapping. Basically, if it's going to the last question, the fifth question, and then if you're doing quiz view model, move to next, and then that's the function that, like, it's the next question function basically, and then it should give you the first question, right? So those are basically unit tests. That's not what we'll be writing in this project in this class. We'll be actually doing something called Android test to test. It's going to actually test against your emulator, right? It's going to open your emulator, it's going to open the mobile device, it's going to click on certain things, and it's going to do different things. And then, hey, excuse me, can someone turn off their sound, please? Thank you. Yeah, I don't want this happening from next time. Please turn off your sound. I will have to, just if I know who it is, I'll have to take them out of the class. So okay, sounds good. So it's fine. It's okay. All right, so let's move on, right? But it is disruptive for the class, so please be careful, right? I don't want to make it an unpleasant experience for the other students. All right, so in the project 1C, you will see that there's a thing called setup and tear down, and this is for all Android tests, right? This is what you want to do when you set up. So what is the first thing you want to do when you actually run these tests, right? This is actually launching the main activity, um, Java, right? And then you will have to, after you're done with the testing, right, you'll have to close your test, right? So this is tear down is what you do at the end, right? And now let's look at a couple of tests, right? So Um, so if you look at it, clicking hint 3 times, then rotating twice disables. So this is written very well, right? If you look at the Android test for project 1C, it is written very well, right? If you see, um, if you look at like, so basically what this is doing is this is clicking on the hint 1 time, right? And then it is clicking on the, so what does it say? Clicking hint 3 times, then rotating twice disables all but correct, right? So it's clicking the hint 3 times, but then it's rotating, but then you rotate it twice. That means it goes to the landscape and then it goes back to portrait, right? And then it disables all but the correct answer, right? It should disable everything except the correct answer. And that's what it's doing, is clicking the hint 3 times, then you recreate. This recreate basically restarts um restarts, like it's basically like rotating, right? So it's rotates the screen, and then after that you see if this is if you see, you have to look if all these buttons are enabled or not, right? Everything has to be enabled except this answer 0, which is the correct answer, right? So that's basically what that is doing. All right, so let's move on to the next one, right? Clicking hint 3 times disable hints, right? So if you click the hint 3 times, it disables the hint, right? So what it's basically doing is clicking the hint 3 times, and then it's disabling, it's checking if this hint button is being disabled, right? So that's about it, right? So that's all the tests theory we're gonna go through. You guys are gonna see all the 24 tests as you guys work on project 1C, which we're gonna give a little bit of a hint today in the class, right? And then now let's look at this. So this is what happened, right? This is just, let's just go over some theory for intent. Intent is basically passing something, right? Some kind of small variable like a Boolean or an integer or something from one activity, which is the main activity, to another activity, which is the cheat activity. This is the picture. I took this picture straight out of the book, right? So what happens is intent is basically saying I have this intent of passing something to this cheat launcher from the main activity. You press the cheat option, right? So you have this intent. So now it just opens that cheat activity, right? So the thing that it does, it's a very unusual thing. It's just, rather than communicating within the app itself, inside the project itself, what it does, it goes to the Android OS. So it goes to the operating system, and this thing called the activity manager, it will open this cheat activity here, right? And then now the user presses the show answer. So now the user presses the show answer. So that means he's cheating. The student is cheating. Then the intent is gonna. So this is main activity. Write some kind of code, and it's waiting for something to be passed from cheat activity. So this is just waiting, right? It's continually waiting. Maybe think about this is some kind of loop, right? But it's not loop. It's something very cleaner that it does. It has been provided. This thing has already been created for you. This thing that waits, right? There's a thing called contract. We're going to talk about that. And then that actually waits. And then when people press on the back button, then this is sent. Again, this is not sent directly to the main activity, right? It has to go through this Android OS. And you guys might be thinking this is like boring, like, okay, we have like 2 screens, and this is very inefficient, Professor. It's going through the Android OS every single time. Every single time that this is passing something to each other, right? And you will learn something that's more efficient in the next lecture or something like that. I think in the next 2 lectures, you'll learn something more efficient called fragments, and then you'll learn something called recycler views, and you will learn things that are more efficient, right? And again, you will learn something called implicit intent, and you will see more clearly why this Android is doing that in the later lectures, right? So, and now the intent passes this result, which is basically, yes, the answer is shown, the student is cheating, and then you pass the result back from the Android OS to the main activity. All right, so does that make sense? Any questions so far? All right, so let's move on, right? If you have question, please stop me. The only thing I get offended if the people turn on their mic, and even that might be a mistake, right? I apologize if I acted harshly. I don't want to make anyone feel like I'm just being angry towards them, right? I'm not angry. I just got distracted. So I apologize for that. So please feel free to turn on your mic and ask questions if you have any questions. All right, so let's move on to intent. An intent is a way to describe an action you want to perform. So intent is basically what the English vocabulary says, right? It's basically they have an intent to do some. They have an intention to do something, right? For example, open cheat activity and tell it the answer to the current question, right? So you basically want to you want to know the answer to the current question. And then what this picture did not show was you also want to send the correct answer to the cheat activity, and you can do that, right? Which we're going to show you in the examples that's coming ahead. Extras are additional pieces of data attached to the intent. So yes, you are going to cheat activity, but what's the purpose, right? Why are you going to that cheat activity? Maybe you just want to open that, but maybe you also want to send something to that activity, right? Think of them as a message in a bottle that one activity sends and the other activity reads, right? So pretty simple stuff. So let's look at this. And then how you need to send it is like a key value pair. So unique identifier, answer is true. You just have to have this unique identifier, and then you pass the actual data. So let's look at the code here real quick, right? How does this work? Define a key. To avoid confusion, define a constant key um, in the activity that will receive the data, and that should be in the cheat activity. And I'll actually show this in the code, right? This might be a little bit confusing even in the slides, but I'm actually going to go through all this today after I finish project 1A, right? So please define this in the cheat activity. Second, add data to the intent. So first of all, you start answer is true, and then you get quiz view model current question answer, right? So you get the answer right now from the quiz view model. What is the current answer? Maybe the correct answer is true or false or something like that, right? This is not related to project 1B or 1C. This is an example from the book that I'm giving you, but the answer is true, right? And then you want to pass this boolean, right? You start this intent. Your intent is to go from this. This is actually main activity. So that's quite confusing, but this is actually main activity, right? Class. And then it is passing, it wants to pass something to cheat activity. It wants to go here, right? And then you want to put this extra answer is true, and then you pass the answer, right? That's how you are. So this is the this constant variable that you probably want to declare it public. Actually, I'll show you a better way of doing it in the code, right? You don't want to actually make this public, but you want to somehow get that extra answer is true, right? And we will show that in the code. And then you start the activity with intent. And this is not the best way of doing it. This is just a simple example to show you guys how to pass it, but I'll show a better way of doing it. The book actually shows a better way of doing it, and I'm going to teach you how to do that. Retrieve data in the target activity. In the receiving activity, cheat activity, extract the data using the same key, right? So now you'll just say you'll just say intent.get boolean extra, and then you will say extra answer is true, right? So if nothing was sent, then it will default to a false, right? But if something is sent, then it is going to receive default value if no data is found, right? So now there's a better way of doing it actually, but the book shows a better way of doing it. And how you do is you basically do something called a cheat launcher, right? So you don't have to initialize it like this, right? You don't have to say like, oh, I'm going to create an indent and put extra and all this, right? You can simply do is you initialize the cheat launcher, and then you call this function register for activity results, and you pass two different two different parameters. And this might be very confusing to people that are new to functional programming, but it's basically passing in functional programming. If you have two different parameters, but another parameter is a function, then you can pass something like this. Right now, just take this as a leap of faith, is how the book has given it. But later, I think in project 2, we'll actually make something like this ourselves. We'll make something like this, this lambda expressions and passing this, right? So basically, you call this parameter activity result contract start activity for result. So this parameter is basically going to start activity for result. And then the second parameter, it's going to wait for the results, and then it's going to handle the result, right? So please take this as a faith right now, as a step of faith. We will learn, actually, we're going to code this in the future, how this is working in the future, right? But what this happens is after it gets the result, it's going to have a result code. It's going to result activity.result. Okay, that means, okay, it gave you some result. It can give you result dot underscore cancel or something like that if it doesn't give you any result. But if it gives you something, if you press on the back button on the cheat activity, then it's going to give you cancel. If you didn't press anything, if you didn't say like show me the answer, it's going to just do that. But if you did press on that, then it's going to give you result okay, right? And then if you did cheat, then it's going to be a result the data. You basically putting a question mark here because it still can be a null data, so we don't know if it's going to be null or not. So we're just going to put this question mark and then say get boolean extra, and then you're going to get this answer from the extra answer zone, which is basically like the same thing, like this constant value, right? So I'm going to explain this more in detail. If you don't understand everything, this is going to be clear as I write the code step by step, right? Quiz view model, then that is cheater is going to be, so in the quiz view model, it's we know if this person is a cheater or not, and then this did cheat is going to answer that, right? And these are just basically default values, right? So if we didn't get anything, then we get false, and then we have to put this false so that to protect from null pointer exceptions, right? So we're just doing those things. All right. So what's happening here? Specifies a contract for sending and receiving data. So this is basically I'm talking about this code, right? And then after the lambda result defines what to do with the result. The result code indicates whether the child activity completed successfully, result okay, or result canceled. And if it did complete successfully, it's going to do result okay. Sorry, I said something wrong, right? If it goes back without even looking at the answer, it's still going to give you result okay, right? If it just canceled abruptly, that's when it's going to give you this result canceled. And then a result.data will have the data that the child activity send it to you. And then this get boolean extra retrieves a specific piece of data, did cheat, right? So what's happening here? Let's look more into this. Launch the child activity. So now before, how did we do that was we basically said did this way, right? So this is not the best practice. We're not going to do that. From now on, what we're going to do is we're going to do binding the cheat button. After you click on the cheat button in the main activity, it's going to give you the answer. It's going to pass this answer. And then you're going to create this cheat activity, that new intent. And I haven't shown you how we created this new intent function, which I'm going to show you guys in the code. And then you basically use this um, this cheat launcher that you created here, cheat launcher, to launch the intent, right? So you can do that. I'll show you in a short time how to write that code, right? So again, and what's happening here, right? So and then after the cheat activity gets the result, it's gonna have to pass that. If someone clicks on the show the answer, right, then you'll have to pass it back. Pass it back, you basically have to put an extra answer zone. It's going to be true or false, and then you'll have to return. You have to set the result as activity.result okay, and then pass this data. Basically, you'll just have to pass this data, and then this is gonna retrieve the data here, right? So basically, that's all that is doing right now. And then trigger result sending, right? So basically binding dot show answer button dot set on click listener. So this is when the answer is shown, then you trigger this function, and then after that you just select finish, which is basically going to close the cheat activity and return to the main activity. And then the last thing is, which we've already talked about. So we've already talked about this. This is going to get the result okay. And then it's going to also get the data, extra answer shown. And then we're going to get the quiz view model is going to have if that person cheated or not, right? So that's all I'm going to talk about. Let's finish project 1B. I think if some things has not been clear as I do live coding step by step, I think things are going to get clear as I describe more as I'm coding. Any questions before I go into project 1B to finish the project 1B? Any questions? All right, so let's go to solve project 1B. I don't know where we were. Let me just, I think, project 1B. So let's go to project. I'm not exactly sure where I stopped last time. So let me just open the main activity. So I think I created the main activity. I think I was making a significant progress on quiz view model. So let's just go on like step by step, right? Let's just go on step by step and see what I need to complete here. Let's look at this. So we have the binding, we have the root, here we have the list of the buttons. Let's start with the hint button, right? So I think I did the hint button actually. I already finished the hint button. So if you press on the hint, it will have to filter the answer list. And if it's correct, sorry, if it's not correct, and if it's still enabled, it hasn't been disabled, then you pick one of those randomly. This is just going to give you one thing. You actually cannot do for each because it just gives you one item from the list. That means you can only use this thing called let. And then using that answer, you need to, is enabled is going to be false, and is selected is also going to be false, and you're going to have to do the update view, right? So one thing I mentioned about the update view was the update view has to be, I told you guys that you need to, so we had done the zipping of the answer list with the button list here, but that's not going to work in this project because this button list is going to be rezipped with the new answer list after you click on the next button, right? So what I mean by that is like, so let me show you the run the launch on the device. So basically what I'm saying is if I click on Brisbane or whatever, I think this code is not working, but basically if I submit, actually the submit is not working. I've not created. Basically, if it goes to the next question, then this this button, these buttons, this is button 1, button 2, button 3, and button 4, right? Answer 0 button. This is not going to be tied to, sorry, this is going to still be tied to Brisbane, Canberra, Melbourne, and Sydney, which is not what we want, right? We want this button to be tied to the next answers, right? So that's the reason why we need to, what we need here is we need to actually, whenever the update view is called, maybe after you click on a hint button or after you create on the submit button, right? It has to go over here and then it has to rezip it, right? It has to rezip this thing, right? So how do I do that, right? So let's do that. Let's work on that, right? So we, in the update view, right? So after, you know what, actually, let's do the submit button first. Let's create the submit button, right? So after you create the submit button, I think I've already did most of it here, is you just need to do quiz VM dot next question. I don't know if I created the next question here. So let's do quiz VM dot. Did I create the next? I did create the next question. Why is this not? Oh, it's the capital letter, quiz VM. Quiz VM. So yeah, that's a simple mistake. And then we need to go to the next question, right? After you create on the submit button. And then after it goes to the next question, it's gonna have to update the view, right? So let's go and write the code for the next question. So how do I write this, right? It should be a very simple function. So the next question is simply going to be current index plus 1 ampersand. That means it's going to do modulus question list dot size, right? So it's just going to look at the current index, whatever index is, you do plus 1, and then it's going to do ampersand question list dot size, right? So this is going to give you the next question. And remember, like after this current index is fixed, right? Everything else is going to be set, like the answer list is going to be correct because you see it's tied to the current index. It's going to give you the right answer list. And the question list, the question text is also going to be correct because it's going to go to the current question and then it's going to give you the right string here, right? So basically everything else is fixed, right? Oh, the one thing I want to share with you guys is the questions, right? So you guys have been asking me, how should the questions be written for? So I'm just going to copy and paste this. I'm not going to write all of this right now. Let me just copy and paste this from the code that I've already written. So you should have 4 questions. You see you have 5 questions, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for project phase C, you need 4 questions, right? So you need 4 questions. You can see here there's question 1, question 2, question 3, and question 4. There's 4 questions, right? And this is written. And it has to be in this order, right? Whatever the question or answer is, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is for the first question, the first option has to be true and the next 3 has to be false. And the second option has to be true for the second question. The third option has to be true for the third question. Everything else is false. And the fourth option has to be true for the fourth question, right? And everything has to be false. So hope this makes sense, right? This is how you need to do the question. And basically we're done here, right? We created the next question. And then now when you click on the submit button, then it should go to the next question and then it should update the view, right? Now there's a problem, right? When you update the view, it hasn't been zipped, right? The button has not been zipped. It hasn't been zipped to the So let's do that, right? So let's we need to fix it is zipped to the button list. Then we did the for each. Button is enabled, answer in actually we did this already, right? So it has to be zipped here, which we already did here. So we already did the quiz VM answer list, we zipped it with the button list, and then we did the for each, and then we said that the button is enabled if the answer is enabled, and the button is selected if the answer is selected, right? That's all we need to do because we already fixed if something has to be is selected or enabled, we already fixed that here, right? So this basically it's already doing the trick for you. One thing we have not done is we have not changed the question text, right? So if we in the update view, we need to do something like this, right? We need to do question text. Oh, are we saying still question Australia? Is that, have we not fixed that? Let me go to the activity main. Does it say question Australia still? Which I need to fix this. So yeah, so this still says
Professor, I have a quick question.
yes.
So you just mentioned that we have to have four different groupings of question. Obviously, going first, second, third, fourth for the true statements. Are we still maintaining the same naming convention per like, Q1 answer zero and how you have it written here, answer zero button. Like, is that still being maintained throughout project 1C?
I don't I don't think it matters in the test, but
Okay.
as far as possible, yeah, do what I've done here. I'm not sure if that's what the test is expecting. I don't think so. I think it's just gonna check in the it's just gonna click through the answers in a real emulator. So I don't think that's gonna matter how you name these strings, but your IDs have to match. The main thing is the IDs have to match. So this question Australia, it's not correct. I need to fix this to match
Okay.
according to project 1C. So let me just fix a little bit with this. Um, yeah, I need to match this with project 1C, right? So this has to be question text, not question Australia. So let me fix that. This has to be question text. Good question. Thank you for asking that. I appreciate it. So this has to be question text, not question Australia. And this, it doesn't matter if it's question Australia, but let's just put it to, in the beginning, let's just put it to question zero here. And then this has to be answer zero button, answer one button, answer two, answer three. This is correct. This is how it's supposed to be. The IDs are correct here. And also it is, instead of Q, you can just say Q0, answer one. And then it's not required. I don't think this matters, but I'm just going to do it. Not that I have too much time on my hand, but I just like to keep it consistent. Answer two, and then this has to be Q0, answer three. Right? So basically this is giving answer from the new string.xml that I created. All right, so this is basically, I think everything is correct. Hint button, that's correct, and submit button, that's the same ID. So that's correct, right? So we need to do something called, we need to change the question text after we click on the next button. So we're just going to do question text. And then we cannot do something like equals and then we put the text. We have to do something called set text. And then here we're going to do something called quiz vm.question text. So now this is basically going to go over here and then ask us the current question, right? Question text. That's basically giving us the question text. So this should be working. And then the last thing we want to do here in this code is when we need to disable the hint button, right? If it has been used more than, if it's used 3 times, then it has to be disabled. So is enabled, right? So I'm going to write something like this. So quiz vm.answerList dot any, I'm going to say, sorry, it has to be lambda expression. If it's like it, so I'm going to explain this after I write this. And so if any of them is enabled and there is no correct, there is no correct answers, then we're gonna enable it. So so basically, like if any of them, there's anything that is left to be enabled, then we just pass the true here. And then if there's any that is correct, sorry, if there is an answer that is not correct, right? So if there's an answer that is not correct, then we can still pass true, and this has to be enabled. But this two condition has to be matched, right? So there's and if this is matched, if any of these is then it is going to be hint button is going to be enabled, right? So basically that's what we're going to write. So this should work. We can give it a try now. Let's see. Quiz VM, answer list. Okay, let me try this real quick. I don't know if this will actually work. So I press on this. Oh, what's happening here? Oh, okay, okay. So this is not gonna work. Excuse me. We have not created, so we just zip the button is for each is enabled. Okay, so again, we've only like updated it, right? But what happens if someone presses on the button? Nothing is gonna happen because we have not done anything here, right? So this is basically not gonna work at this point. So let's figure this out, how to do this, right? So this is the only thing this is doing is updating. This is updating the view, right? If it's enabled, it's going to be enabled. If it's not enabled, it's not going to be enabled, right? So, but we have not wrote any code. If someone clicks on that, right, and it has to be written in this update view because it has to be zipped with the new answer here, right? With the new answer list. So we're going to do answer list.zip, and then we're going to do button list, and we're going to do for each. And then, so basically, we're going to zip this quiz VM with answer list, zip the button list, and then we're going to say something like, we're going to say this is the clicked answer, and then this is the button. There's the two things, right? This is just, we're going to create a tuple. From the list, we have the answer list and then the button list, right? So we've already talked about this, how this works. And then we're going to do something like button dot set. Okay, so button dot set text is going to be clicked answer dot text res ID. So basically, we're going to set the text to that clicked answer. And then we're going to put on a set on click listener here. And then this is where we're going to do the work here, right? So what we're going to do here is do the clicked answer dot is selected. Basically, this is what we did in the previous class, is if something is selected, then we're just going to do the previous, like the opposite of the previous. If it was selected, we'll have to deselect it. And if it's not selected, we'll have to select it, right? So that's basically what's doing. And then we'll do answer list dot filter. This, and again, everything I'm doing here is we already done in the previous lecture, right? This is basically what we do when we select something, right? And then we do this is not equals to the clicked answer. We're going to filter it based on all the answers that hasn't been clicked. We're going to loop through that, and then we're going to make each selected equals to false, right? Because those answers, if it's switching from one answer to another, we're going to make everything else false, right? And then we will have to again call the update view here. And so where is the button click listener? So the click listener is here. So after we do the click listener, we're going to have to call, because it's not going to simply go here, right? If it's being clicked here, it has to be called again, right? So update view, and then it's going to update the view, right? So let's look at this first, and then we'll move on from here, right? So let's Hopefully this works this time. So yeah, so now these click buttons are working. Let's try the hint so button, right? So hint, yeah, 1 is gone, 2 is gone, 3 is gone, right? So now what about the submit, right? Will the submit work? Let me try the submit. By the way, this submit should not work if something is not selected, right? So um, we still haven't like fixed the submit button, right? So let us fix that actually before we go into the next question, right? The submit should only be clicked once one answer is selected, right? So let's fix that. So how do I do that, right? And that should be something like this: binding dot submit button is enabled is going to be something like quiz bm dot answer list, and then if any of the answer is selected, then yes, the submit button should be able to work, right? So now, otherwise it's going to be false. If none of them are selected, then this is going to be false, right? And it's not going to work because it's going to call the update view in the beginning. It's going to go over here, and then it's going to make this disabled in the beginning because nothing has been clicked. So let's look at this, right? Let's see if this will work now. Yeah, you see the submit button is turned off. Let's call all the hint. Everything is the only option that I have is this. Now this should work, right? Now, after I click this, it should go to the next question. Perfect, right? What is the capital of Nepal? And then this also changed. So if you hadn't zipped this here, and if you had put it over here, this button list would not have been tied to this answer, right? So it would not have done that, and it would have, but it would not have this listener ready to listen now here. So there would have been issue if we had not done this inside the update view, right? So it has to be done here instead of here. Maybe I could have shown you guys an example here. Maybe I should show you guys an example. Let me show you guys what I mean by that. If I'd done it somewhere like here, let's see. Let's try doing this here, right? And let's rerun the code. I click on this or that, or some hints, couple of hints, and then I do Canberra. I go next. Yeah, first of all, you see where's the capital of Nepal? It doesn't zip here. But even if I click here now, you see it's not working. You know why it's not working? Because it's working in the previous answer. So if you go back, okay, if I go back, actually I can't actually, it's fine. But basically it's tied to that previous, answer. So that's why it's not working, right? So it's not going to work. So basically you will have to copy and paste this and put it in here. So that's the point here. So update view, it has to do this in the update view, right? So that's basically what I wanted to show you. Let's see, what else do we have left to do here? Okay, so we have the update view. We did the update view, and then we ran this. We clicked on that, so that's working. Set text. Okay, we did that. We changed everything. We changed the bind button. We did those things as well. The only thing is there's a problem of efficiency here, right? So one thing you will notice is we don't need to zip this all the time, and then it's listening for the answer, listening to be clicked all the time, right? This only has to be done only when the submit button is clicked, right? You don't have to do this when someone is clicking the hint button. The only thing that has to be done when you're clicking the hint button is this code, right? So basically we can create like a Boolean here, right? So that we can create a Boolean in this function called, say, question update, and then we can say something like a Boolean, right? And then we can say if this is just for efficiency, right? So if question update is, so if someone clicks on the submit button, then you need to run this code, and then you write false, not true. If someone and else, not else, but just the rest of the time, this function, the rest of the code has to run. So now, whenever you are calling submit button, then this has to be true because you want to change the question. And then in the beginning, yes, you want to do that in the beginning because for the first question, you still need a listener. You need a button listener, like with the listener here. And then whenever you're pressing on the hint button, you just need to say false, right? So I think this is it. I think this is the end of project 1B. So if I click on run, so now every single time I'm clicking on the hint button, this code is not going to run because it's not asking for the question update, right? Because this was inefficient. This was going through this whole thing and running this whole thing, right? That's not what we want, right? We only want that when we click on the submit button, right? So which is the capital of Australia, Brisbane, right? The submit button should disappear again because every time you click on the submit button, then it's gonna, sorry, every time you click on any of these, then it should do this update view, right? So that's gonna disappear, and we're gonna select Brisbane, submit. It goes to the next question, and then we click here. Now it's working. Let's click on the hint, and then we can submit that. And yeah, that's the end of project 1B. So any questions? This is the end of project 1B. Does anyone have any questions? Maybe I should stop here for a little bit. Let you guys reflect on that a little bit, chew on that a little bit. That's the end of project 1B. So let's get started with project 1C. Let's do that. So let's get started with project 1C. Can you guys see my screen again? Can someone give me a thumbs up? So I see that Mitchell said yes. So yeah, you can see my screen. So let me give you some hints for project 1C. So let's get started with project 1C actually. So just give me a second. I need to see what I need to do here. All right, so that was the end of project 1B. Let's start with creating a summary activity, right? So let's create a new thing called summary activity. So what we're going to do is create summary activity. So basically how you're going to do is go here, here, and then you just say, get me a new activity. And then you will do the empty views activity options. And this is what it's going to show you. And then we're going to do summary activity. And then you will say generate layout file. Yeah, of course you want the summary. I mean, you want the layout file. And then you see automatically it gave us this activity summary, which is correct. We don't want this to be a launcher activity. This should be turned off. And then it is in this package name, which is correct, and the Kotlin language is correct. So let's create the summary activity. Just delete all this code. We don't need any of this stuff. We're gonna write all this code later. There's a question here. Is this under the Android test or the test file? No, this is not under the test. It's going to be under this package, this edu.vt multi-quiz. The test is going to be in here. It's going to be in the Android test, which I have given you, which I'm going to show you guys next week how to run that test. Actually, I might show you guys right now. Let me go to Canvas and download the test. So let's go to project 1C. And then let's go to this. Let's download this. And then I'm just going to download the test, multi-quiz test. And then that's just downloaded it. I'm just going to copy this in the Android test. I think it's the Android test, right? I always get confused. It's Android test. Yeah, it has to be here. So I'm going to go to my downloads and I'm going to go copy this and then paste it here. It's going to paste it here. Yeah, multi-quiz dot, and then this is all the test. Of course, it's not going to work because it still has a lot of issues here. We have not created the reset button. We haven't created a lot of stuff. It's going to give you errors for now, but it's fine. We can skip that for now. The only thing you need to do is create a summary activity now, right? So let's go ahead, right? Let's keep on working. Now you need to go and create a layout for summary activity, which is, yeah, let's create a layout for the summary activity, which is going to be in here. So I'm just going to quickly create the summary activity, right? So you need, I need to convert this into a linear layout. So let me convert this. So this is a constrained layout. So first of all, I need to convert the view to make it a linear layout. And it has to be, I can remove this ID. It has to be vertical, actually, not horizontal. Convert to vertical. So yeah, let's create the vertical. I'm going to add some spacing here. Let's add some spacing. Where is the spacing? So we'll add one spacing here. And then after that spacing, we're going to add a text view, which is basically going to say quiz summary. And then we'll add another spacing. We're going to fix all of this, by the way. Let me just start with all the things I need first, and then I'll fix it. We need the spacing. And then in the middle, I need a linear layout that says correct answers and hint use, right? So it should have correct answer and hints used, right? So let's do that. It has to be quiz summary. It has to be a vertical layout. A vertical layout. Okay, I see. So I need to create a linear layout that is a vertical layout here. And in that vertical layout, we need two linear layouts, and I will show you guys why we're doing that. We need two horizontal layouts, and you might ask why this is, but I'll explain in a little bit. And we need another linear layout here. And then in this linear layout, you need a text view. A text view. And you also need another text view. And I'll explain all of this in a little bit. I think this will start to make sense in a little bit. So text view, and then we also need another text view here. And then we need more spacing. After this, we need some spacing again. Layout spacing. It went down there. Let me just pull it back, bring it. Yeah, I need spacing outside. And then you also need a reset all button. So you need a reset all button, and then you need the spacing again. And then layout. And then you need the spacing again. Again, spacing is going to be the same thing that we did previously. This is going to be match parent, and then this is going to be 0 dp. I've already explained this in the previous lecture what this is doing. So we'll just say layout weight is going to be 1. And then we're going to do this for all the spaces, right? We're going to do that for the same thing for this one as well. We're going to do the same thing here, 0 dp, and then the weight is going to be 1. It's basically going to create these spaces, right? So another spacing, 0 dp, and then weight is going to be Layout weight is going to be 1. And the last spacing here, right? So let's do layout height 0 dp, and then weight um, weight is going to be 1. So I don't exactly know why this is still not giving me the right thing that I need, but let's just start working on this, right? So where is this? Okay, so let's create this. Why is this not giving me the right spacing here? Hold on, space, text view. Yeah, live coding has its challenges, unfortunately. Um, and spacing. Oh, it might be because of this linear layout. It should be wrap content here. This should be wrap content and wrap content. All right, so that's what I want. So okay, so that's these things can get very tricky. Live coding can get tricky. So let's get started with this. So the spacing is correct. Let's make this quiz views quiz summary, and then I think this should be named quiz summary. So you might want to name this all of these correctly. And then it has to be also be wrap content, and you guys should know why I'm doing the wrap content here. So that's wrap content, and here for the text, I'm gonna put the text here as summary heading. I want to spend a lot of time teaching you guys the theory, but we do need to create this layout. But it's fine. I'll record a video if we don't finish. And then we'll just say quiz summary. And then put this as the heading. Wrap content. Yeah, this is doing some weird stuff here still. Just give me a second. Let me just come back real quick. I just need to drink some water here. If you guys don't mind, give me like 2 minutes. Thank you. Yeah, can you guys hear me? Can you guys give a thumbs up real quick? All right, so let's get started. Continue the lecture. Sorry, I had to take a short bathroom break. Let's start again with this layout. Can you guys see my screen? Can you guys give a thumbs up? All right, so let's continue working on this, right? So this is summary heading. It's called quiz summary. We got this, and then what you want to add this is also you want to add text size. Android text size, it's gonna be make it something big, say like 34 or something like that. That says quiz summary, and then we're gonna do the text style. We're gonna make this bold. It says normal, we're gonna make it bold, and we're gonna apply this to this, right? So that's basically what we're gonna do. So let's start from the top of the linear layout. The linear layout is match parent, match parent. One thing I think we forgot to do, I think that was what the issue is. I think is we need to make it center. Yeah, we need to make the center, apply this, and I think this is gonna center it. So that was the issue that I was facing. So then I need to do this quiz summary, and then where the spacing is correct. And then in this linear layout, we have two texts here, right? Two text views. Actually, let me make this bigger for you guys to see. So here, in the first text view, let's go to this first text view. So that's gonna be this text view. We are going to do wrap content, it's fine. We're just gonna remove that. And then with the ID, we don't need the ID as well. For the text, we can simply say, we can just say, you know what, I'll let you guys do that. I'll just say correct answer for now. Correct answers. And then that's the correct answers. And then this thing, you have to be careful to name this. It has to be exactly as the assignment said. It has to be correct answers count. And then we have to refactor it. And then this is match parent, wrap content. We don't need the layout weight for this one. Correct answer. We need to give a little bit of a padding here. Let's give a little bit of the padding here. We just give a padding of, say, 8, so that this and this is separated a little bit, right? So we just give some padding. And for the text, we'll just put hashes for here. We're gonna put the numbers here instead later. So we just give the hashes here, which is that's what we need. And the same thing for this linear layout, right? We do the same thing. We don't do anything with this. We don't need to do anything with this. We remove this one. I don't even need the ID for text view. We just say hints. And like I said, this is not the best practice. It's better to use the string resource file, but I'm just gonna do this for my convenience so that I can move to the rest of the lecture, right? So let's do that. And then this has to also be named correctly. Hints used count has to be named hints used count. Yeah, we refactor this. And then the text is gonna be, we're gonna use something like hash. We don't need this layout weight. And then we're gonna create a padding here as well. We're gonna create a little bit of padding. Gonna do 8, same as the previous one, right? So this is good. We have proper spacing. We have the final button. This button is gonna be called the reset all button. All button. And then we're gonna do wrap contents. The reason that this is giving issue is because it's big, is because it has that wrap content here. We're gonna do wrap content, and then we're gonna say, we create a string resource file. We're just gonna say reset all button, and then we just say reset all. All right, so we are done with this. So we are done with this. Finally, we can go to the code for the next 10 minutes, and then we can learn some skills. for this project that you guys need to finish this project, right? So this is, I think everything should be fine. Let me just double check that everything is correct here. Correct answer count, hints used count, reset button, quiz summary, everything. Okay, so this looks good, right? This looks good. Activity summary. So that's the end of that. I don't need that anymore, right? So that's that. So now let's start writing some code, right? So here, first of all, we need to go to the, actually, let's go to the summary activity. In the summary activity, this is how we start. Binding, you do need to have this binding in the beginning. You need the super dot on create and then saves. So we need that first of all. And then you do need the binding like you need for the main activity. You do need the binding equals activity main binding. Actually, it's going to be the summary, activity summary binding. Summary binding. So we need to do that, and then we're going to do the inflate and use the layout. So this is basically what we've done in all the previous projects, right? And then we need to create a binding here that's private late init var binding, and then we'll do activity main binding, right? So now we have this binding of this type activity summary binding, and then we basically inflate this in our screen for the summary activity. And then we're going to do set content view, and then we're going to do binding dot root. Okay, so this is going to set the activity to the layout. So basically now if someone goes to summary activity, they should see this screen. They should see activity summary. All right, so I think I'm going to stop here now. We don't have a whole lot of time. I'm going to record something real quick. I'm just going to record something in like 30 minutes or so. I don't know, something. I'm just not feeling very well right now today. So unfortunately, I need to go right now, maybe get some rest, eat something. This is probably because like I get really hungry during this time, and I guess it's very difficult for me to write code while I'm hungry. So I apologize for that. I did want to continue, but I think I'm going to eat something now, and I'm going to put this recording. I'm going to immediately create a video in like 30 minutes, and yeah, I'm going to immediately create a video in like 30 minutes, eat something, get some rest, and then I'll put it on Canvas. I'm sorry about that. So today I've been like really confused because this is what happens when I'm really hungry. I had like back to back meetings, so I'm sorry about that. Thank you for your sympathies. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I am gonna go and then I'm gonna record very soon. Thank you very much. Someone asked questions. I don't have office hours